For a few weeks now, I've been working on this drawing of an iguana. So I just wanted to show you how I draw the scales. It's actually the same as the tutorial I made about the chameleon. I think I made a tutorial about that one as well, about how to draw the scales, and it's a bit of the same technique what I use for this one. It is important that you choose the right colors. Always you want to make it look natural, and it's often you need a lot more different colors than what you would initially think. Like for this one I've been using brown and red. I'll show you the pencils. I've been using the red pencil, a bit of a darkish green, a lighter green, a gray, and black, which I actually only use for the darkest shadows, like in between the scales. You always have to be careful a bit with black in a colored pencil drawing. Using too much black. Blue pencil. Not much blue, but here and there is blue. For example, those parts there, I used some blue, and a brown pencil. So that's 7 colors. You wouldn't really think that at first when you look at this drawing. So the most important thing to make it look realistic is to have a sense of shadow and lighting. It's always good with realistic drawings to find out where the shadows need to be, the darkest parts, and where the lighting needs to be. And of course, in an animal with scales like this, the shadows are going to be mostly in between the scales. So that's why I also start always with drawing the scales. As you can see, I always make a setup very lightly with graphite pencil at first, so you need to know, so that you know where all the scales need to be. And then I just start with adding the shadow. There's often really tiny scales in between the bigger scales, and you can also see that the scales have a lot of different sizes. Around the eyes, around the eye it's very small, but here you have like a huge big scale. Okay, so let's add the shadow here. In between here there's a lot of dark. I'll show you the image that I'm using. That is the one that I'm using, and as you can see I'm working on around this part. Now this is the biggest scale, as you can see. I'm working on that one right now. I don't pay too much attention to the image. I don't draw every scale exactly how it's supposed to be or how it is in the image that I'm using. I'm just using my own imagination a bit to make it realistic. But here there's a lot of black, so I'm just making it black mostly. I also work with dots a lot to create a sense of texture. Because the scales are not smooth, as you can see, there are cracks everywhere. And there's a lot of texture going on, and you want to keep creating that in your drawing. So I often use dots. And add some gray. Always a sheet under my hand, so that the paper stays clean and you don't smudge. And add some brown as well. Okay, I'm gonna work on that scale now. As you can see in the image, it's very light. It doesn't contain much color. I always start a bit light. In many of my other tutorials I say it's better to work light first than too dark, because it's always a lot easier to add more and to make it darker than to erase, to make it lighter. Here there's a little bit darker. You don't want to make it equally dark all over the whole scale, because then it just doesn't look realistic. You want to just use some dots. I like to use dots. I don't want to make it too green, so I add some gray over it to make it a little less green. Let's work on this one a little bit. Oh. And there's a little bit of brown in it. Very light. Mostly around the edges. Okay. I'll move on to this really big one here. Between here it's really dark. Actually has something like this, some smaller scales in between. With this I press quite hard, actually, because it needs to be really dark. I always make a little bit of a gradient, like I go a little bit upwards like this. So that it has a little bit of a round texture. With this one I also start with the green. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't do it exactly like in your image. It's still gonna look like a scale. If you just manage to create a texture, a natural texture, then and you have the colors a bit correct, then it will look realistic. I think it's quite fun to work on an iguana like this, since the scales are so different. Like you have like really small scales and huge ones. It's just a nice variety, I find. Okay, we're done with the green for now. Let me add some gray again. I don't press too hard with this. I actually let the weight of the pencil do most of it. Here I make it a bit darker, press a bit harder. See them moving around the camera a bit much, but it's not always easy to hold the camera while drawing. Okay, brown. Just a little bit here and there. Also just let the weight of the pencil do most of it. Except for here, it can be a bit darker, a bit more. I'm gonna adjust the edge a little bit because it looks a bit unnatural. I'm gonna add a little bit of gradients like this. When you work light, you can always adjust things. When you work too dark, start out too dark, it's really difficult to adjust things when you're not happy with it. And the more experienced and advanced you are, the more confident you can work in the beginning. But when you're a beginner, I would just start a bit more careful and light. Okay, so this was it. I hope you enjoyed my video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to stay updated about my latest videos. Thank you for watching. Bye.